Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
The snow started falling lightly at first, just a whisper of white drifting from a leaden sky. Jake and his friends had been driving through the mountain pass all afternoon, hoping to make it to their remote cabin before nightfall. But the gentle flakes quickly turned into thick, relentless sheets of snow, obscuring the road and swallowing every inch of the landscape. Visibility dropped to almost nothing as the blizzard howled through the jagged peaks. They should have turned back, but the narrow path behind them had already vanished beneath the white. The headlights flickered weakly against the storm's fury. Jake's fingers tightened on the steering wheel as the car crept forward, the tires skidding on icy patches that felt like thin ice cracking beneath their feet. Suddenly, the engine sputtered and died. The car stalled, stranded in the middle of nowhere with no cell signal, just the screaming wind and the growing darkness pressing in. They tried to restart it, but the cold seemed to freeze every part of the machine and their hope. The group decided to brave the storm on foot, hoping to find shelter in a nearby ranger station marked on the old map Jake had in his glove compartment. Each step was a battle against the freezing wind that cut through layers of clothing like a knife. Snow whipped at their faces, blinding them, freezing their breath into ice on their lips. As they stumbled forward, shadows seemed to move just beyond the reach of their flashlights, twisted shapes forming and dissolving in the snow. The trees were gnarled and bent under the weight of the storm, their branches clawing at the sky like desperate hands. Then came the first scream, a sudden sharp cry that shattered the wind's howl. It was Mike, one of the friends, clutching his leg, his face pale with pain. He had slipped on hidden ice and twisted his ankle badly. They made a makeshift splint, but the storm showed no mercy. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. It was impossible to tell. The cold seeped into their bones. Hypothermia crept silently, stealing warmth and clarity. Then the most terrifying thing happened. The storm seemed to whisper, faint voices curling on the edge of hearing. They called names only the group knew, whispered promises of warmth and safety just ahead. Jake shook his head, refusing to believe it. But as exhaustion took over, one by one, his friends started walking toward the voices, as if in a trance. Mike, despite his injury, stood and followed. The snow swallowed them whole. Jake was left alone, heart pounding, the wind tearing at his clothes like wild beasts. He stumbled forward until he saw it, a dim light flickering through the blizzard. It was the ranger station. Relief surged through him, but when he reached the door, he found it ajar, swinging slowly in the wind. Inside was an eerie silence, broken only by the creaking of old wood and the faint sound of breathing. He called out, but no one answered. Then he saw the walls, scratched with frantic messages. "Don't trust the storm. They're still here. Never stop running." The floor was covered in footprints leading to a trapdoor, half buried under snow. Trembling, Jake pulled it open. The basement was a graveyard of frozen bodies, his friends' eyes wide open in terror, faces twisted in frozen screams. But there was something worse. Among them were others, unknown to him, their faces pale and lifeless. Shadows gathered in the corners, whispering and moving just beyond sight. Jake slammed the trapdoor shut and ran, the storm now howling with rage, chasing him like a predator. He never found his way back to the road. When the search parties came weeks later, they found the cabin empty, tracks leading into the storm, and then nothing. The snow had erased all evidence, leaving behind only chilling warnings carved into trees. The storm takes what it wants. Some say the blizzard is alive, feeding on fear and loneliness. Those who hear the voices in the wind, who follow the whispers, never return. And the mountains keep their secrets buried beneath the endless snow, waiting for the next lost soul to wander in and disappear without a trace.
Story number 2.
The night the storm hit, no one expected it to be this bad. It was late November, and the weather reports had warned of a heavy snowstorm rolling through the region. But nothing prepared the small town nestled deep in the valley for the fury about to descend. Emma had been driving home from her late shift at the hospital when the first flurries began. At first, the roads were clear, and the snow was just a pretty nuisance. But within minutes, the snow thickened, turning the highway into a treacherous sheet of ice and white. Visibility dropped so low that Emma could barely see the taillights of the car ahead. Suddenly, her car hit a patch of ice, spinning uncontrollably before slamming into a snowbank. The impact wasn't hard, but the car was stuck fast. Emma tried to call for help, but her phone had no signal. She was miles from the nearest town, the storm trapping her in a frozen wasteland. With a pounding heart, Emma wrapped herself in her coat and stepped outside. The snow was falling so thick, she could barely see her own hands in front of her face. She started walking along the road, hoping to find shelter before hypothermia set in. The wind bit at her skin, and every step was a battle against the crushing cold. After what felt like hours, she spotted a faint glow through the swirling white, a cabin, isolated and half buried in snow. Relief surged through her. She knocked, but no one answered. The door creaked open as if inviting her in. Inside, the cabin was eerily quiet, the air thick with an overwhelming sense of stillness. Emma found a fireplace and lit a fire with trembling hands. As the warmth spread, she noticed something strange. The walls were covered in old photographs of people she didn't recognize, all with eyes scratched out. The floorboards groaned beneath her, and shadows seemed to flicker at the edge of the firelight. Then she heard it, a soft tapping from upstairs. Her breath caught in her throat. She climbed the narrow stairs, each step creaking louder than the last. At the top, she found a door slightly ajar, and behind it, a small room frozen in time. A rocking chair moved slowly back and forth as if someone invisible was sitting in it. The tapping turned into scratching, coming from inside the walls. Panic surged. Emma ran back downstairs and tried the front door, but it slammed shut on its own, trapping her inside. The temperature dropped sharply. Her breath came out in frosty clouds. She could feel cold fingers brushing her skin, whispers curling in her ear, soft, pleading voices calling her name. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost meaning in the storm's grip. The fire flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. Emma huddled in the corner, shivering, her mind slipping between reality and nightmare. The last thing she saw was a pale face pressed against the window, eyes hollow and filled with a terrible hunger. When the storm finally cleared, rescuers found the cabin empty. Emma was never seen again. The only trace of her was a single frozen footprint leading from the door into the endless snow, and then nothing. Locals say the cabin waits, buried beneath the drifts, a trap for anyone caught in the storm's deadly embrace.
Story number 3.
The storm came faster than anyone expected. One moment the sky was a dull gray. The next, fierce winds whipped the mountain trails with snow so thick it swallowed everything whole. Laura and her brother Mark had been hiking for hours, trying to reach the safety of a ranger outpost before nightfall. But the blizzard hit them miles away from shelter, turning the familiar forest into a ghostly labyrinth. They pressed on, their footsteps muffled by the heavy snow. The cold was unbearable, biting through gloves, stealing warmth from their bodies. Suddenly, Mark stopped, staring into the whiteness ahead. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. At first, Laura heard nothing but the howling wind. Then came it, a faint, eerie melody, like a music box playing somewhere just beyond the trees. Curious and terrified, they followed the haunting tune, stumbling deeper into the forest. The trees grew twisted and gnarled, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The snow around them was strangely untouched, not a single footprint except for their own. The music led them to an old, abandoned cabin. Its windows were dark, but inside the soft glow of a candle flickered. The door creaked open before they could knock. Inside was an unsettling stillness, broken only by the faint music box melody that seemed to come from a cracked wooden chest in the corner. Mark reached for the chest, but Laura grabbed his arm. Suddenly, the candle went out, plunging them into icy darkness. The music stopped, replaced by a chilling silence that pressed against their ears. Then from the shadows came the faint sound of breathing, slow, deliberate, and dangerously close. They turned to run, but the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. Trapped inside, the temperature dropped rapidly. Invisible hands brushed against their skin, icy cold and unforgiving. Whispers filled the room, voices speaking in languages neither of them understood, words full of sorrow and rage. Hours later, search parties found the cabin empty. The snow around it was pristine, except for 2 sets of footprints leading away, and then abruptly stopping, as if the earth itself had swallowed them whole. Laura and Mark were never seen again. Locals say that when the snow falls heavy and the wind carries a lonely melody, the cabin's curse is awake, calling wanderers into its frozen trap. Those who answer the music are lost forever, their voices joining the endless chorus of the storm.